AV Super Friends on Topic is an independent production wholly owned and operated by AV Super Friends, LLC. For the highest quality recording of all of our shows, visit avsuperfriends.com. This is AV Super Friends on Topic, a 30-minute monthly roundtable focused on a single topic. This discussion will be opinionated, to the point, and saturated with our well-known blend of painfully won expertise and deeply ingrained immaturity. For September 2024, it's the best-sounding podcast in higher ed. This is the AV Super Friends on Topic. Broadcasting live from coast to coast, easternmost and westernmost, northernmost to southernmost, gate post to hitching post. I'm your local host who can boast the most milquetoast and utmost humility. I'm Chris Decter. Time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure. And we've got a bigger panel, so let's say hello to today's panel of august AV Super Friends with this one. So I'm joined by a senior optimization associate from Kansas City, Jamie Reinhardt, who's not here. Yeah. He quit. All right. That guy's fired. Damn it.
Maybe he's watching. Jamie, hope you're watching this.
Yeah, thanks for me doing this too early, Jamie. All right. Also joined by a forward response synergist from Corvallis, Oregon, Mark Kolowazinski.
We've got to keep it in front of us. We're only going in one direction here. Don't worry about what happened. Only what's going on in the future.
Joined by a direct accountability architect from Greensboro, North Carolina, Larry Darling.
That's made up. Architects are not accountable.
Or direct about anything. Joined by our illustrious Vice President for Regional Ideation from Bowling Green, Kentucky, Justin Rexing.
I've only got local regional ideas. I have no international or national ideas.
No influence.
No.
Local.
Local only.
Mm-hmm.
Also joined by a international metrics associate from an unknown location, geocentric somewhere between Trinidad and Tobago, Lyle Waldron.
That sounds about right. I contest nothing. Nothing.
And finally joined by a customer paradigm producer from Orlando, Florida, Donnie Merritt.
I bring all the paradigms to the house.
Only for customers.
I thought it was paradigm.
Paradigms.
I always thought it was paradigm. Is it
Depends
not?
on what part of the country you're from.
Kentucky's paradigm.
Well, yeah, you're right there.
See,
All right.
All right, so we gathered a few extra friends today. We wanted to talk specifically about one particular topic, the fun time, ever popular. It's just it's a hoot and a holler about budgeting.
Budgets. It's like
budgets.
It's everything we do, right? Everything
and
is budgets. This
was spurred by an article in AV Nation. The link is in the show notes. Larry can probably figure out some way to paste that into the
socials,
the stream socials things there. But about the general challenges with budgeting, and then Donnie in particular, who snuck his way both into that article as well as into our hearts, on how we are going to get past all our free monies, which suddenly aren't there anymore, and what are we going to do? So, and I think pretty much everyone on this call has a very different approach to how we do our own budgets and all that fun stuff. So I figure it'll be a laugh a minute. So.
Yeah, where to begin?
Well, hold. Let me start the timer.
Start timer.
Don't start with me.
We're going to start with Justin. Tell us all about his budgeting. So,
no. It's actually we just wait for projects and we just react. That's our budgeting
reactionary
process.
budget model.
Yep.
You just hope and pray and wish in one hand and.
Well, I don't wish. We sit back and wait for the request to come in, and then we go meet with them and say, "Yep, your shit's broke. You need new shit." And then here's your
run to death, and then hope you got something.
Here's your design.
Yeah,
and then we hand it over to them as an estimate, and they're like, "No, we don't want to do that." It's like, okay, well, you can keep your broke shit.
That's usually functionality.
It's either that or they're like, "Oh, the budget looks good. Let's proceed with project," and we do that. So the reason why we don't do budgeting really for classrooms and AV across campus is because we don't control that centrally. IT central, but money is not. So we got to meet with every individual department based upon what their needs are. So standardization, throw that out the window.
You are standard. You get nothing. Let's start from there.
Standards is a loose term where if it's AV, hey, we can do that.
Hey, buddy, we can do it. Yeah.
We could do AV if it makes noise. It's probably us.
Oh, all right.
So Lau was nodding in agreement. Is that pretty much yours?
Repeatedly. Well, look, I could tell you this, Larry. We don't have enough time for me to go through what budgets look like on two islands. But yeah, pretty much we exist in a space where AV is theoretically central, but it's not really. And yes, I usually do my outreach during the semester, the year before. Our purchasing process takes at least 6 months to go from you're approved to it's by the vendors. I did not say till it gets to us, because everything has to go through Florida and then come to Trinidad. And then
Don's there signing off on everything.
There you go.
You're not
Line
getting
by
anything until I
line.
see this PO.
How do you think I get my equipment? I mean,
Pallet by
shall
pallet,
not pass.
line by line,
Just
right? And then
taking all that, yeah.
I get stuck in customs but I'm in a different, slightly different philosophical base to Justin. I don't want to use the word force standards, but I still have to enforce standards because it's the only way that I know that I'm going to get our costs down in like the big picture. So I'm talking about the time it costs for me to figure out your stuff because it's different from my stuff, which is different from Don's stuff. So, we use NEC projectors for now. We may be switching back to Epsons. I've tried to adopt Don your broad, I'm not trying to standardize down to the serial number of a device. But we have all of our types of rooms designed. I think one of the advantages in higher ed is we don't really, it's not like Resi that, every install is different. We have like 5 types of rooms, maybe 6, and you get like 1 or 2 bespoke ever so often. So it's more speakers, less speakers, bigger amp, smaller amp, bigger screen, smaller screen. So I have all my standards. We review them twice a year just to see if there's any way we could get costs down and maintain functionality up. And God forbid somebody actually says, here we have $100,000, which is not much in your dollars. We see what we could do. But I think it was John Wooden said, preparation, success, is preparation, meeting, opportunity. So I just try to stay prepared.
Okay. Have something ready
basically.
If a windfall comes along, have a plan to spend it and spend it.
If it comes, yes. If it comes, we've submitted. Everything's gone through our VPs of finance. I'm actually right now doing both my operating budgets for 25 and my capital budgets for 25. So I expect. I think. Let me tell you what I got last year for operating. Right. See which one of y'all are broke. Let's figure this out.
Okay.
I got
here we go.
30,000 in my dollars. So I'm going to tell you the exchange rate, and you all will play a game to see who figures out what that is in US first. I got 30,000 of my dollars, which is 6.9 to 1 US. So let's call it 7 to make your lives easy. What was my operating budget for 24?
5.
$5. $1. I bid $1 on this.
I got 5.
Price is right. Just keep going lower, right?
Yeah.
There you go, right? So it's basically like call it 4,600-700, something like that.
Yeah.
For the year.
What?
For the year.
Close.
Yeah, for the year. And that was the operating budget for both my multimedia and audiovisual support unit and the instructional design team.
So that's labor and stuff combined?
That's everything, buddy.
That's
That
everything.
is
Okay.
You see that convo Justin had where he says, okay, your stuff is old, it's broken, it needs to be replaced. That's my it's broken, it needs to be replaced fund.
Okay.
So it then gets into okay, VP Finance, what could you do for me? Because this is not for me, it's for them, and those convos. But philosophically, trust me, I know what it is like to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Trust me.
Clean it
Y'all
all
have
out.
no idea.
All right. So that's a bargain basement as low as you can go. Let's see how far we can stretch every last little bit.
Basically, and I mean, just to wrap it up with a nice bow, it doesn't mean that we don't get good stuff. I just have to operate from a different paradigm. So y'all are touchscreens, we are heavy on button panels.
Oh,
I don't do
love
touch
Button
screens.
panels are the new touch screens.
Yeah.
There you
love
go,
button
right?
panels.
I wish some manufacturers that end in Tron that have colorful swirls would listen to
Oh,
that.
Tronosyses. The
Or
Tronosyses of the
Yeah,
world.
I wish they would, because I had a convo with them just the other day where I said this, right? So little things like that, and what we found is I've been able to do some very svelte things in programming. It lets me get away with multiplicities in terms of control and a couple other things. But I don't get to touch panels unless I'm doing Zoom rooms. I know Chris is probably writhing and groaning inside.
Chris loves Zoom rooms.
Oh,
The only thing he loves more than Zoom rooms is Teams rooms.
Teams rooms
The
are
only thing we
better
love
to
more
go.
than Teams rooms are compute devices, right? Fans of the show know we love compute. So, we still have some nice stuff. We're a Tron shop. We're a media site shop. We're a Zoom shop. Oh
gosh, you sound like us.
Yeah, basically, right? Because here's the fun fact, though. Here's the fun fact, right? My faculty ever so often fly to the States and sit and meet with your faculty, and then they come back to me
They
and
want
say,
all
"We
these
want
things.
it."
Yeah.
Exactly. But we
So they
want it
came
on-
to our campus and they were like, media site, restaurant, yes.
Where you get those fancy
yes.
button panels with the shaved
Yes.
off buttons. Yeah,
but they
that's what
want
we
me to do it on a 1/7 of the budget minus an actual budget. So, let's figure it out. Over to you guys. Let's go.
Wow. Where's the other side of the spectrum on this? Who has like the most stable version of this?
Donnie?
I don't even know where I'm
Who has
at.
$5, Don?
I want Donnie money. That's what I want.
You guys always look at me like I have like money coming down from the mountains up here, and I bet there's somebody else on this call with me.
Oregon money's pretty good too. You got all those Teams rooms up there. Those are expensive.
Yeah, they are. Well, actually, they're kind of cheap in the grand scheme of things. But anyway, I'm curious of the what's going on down in Florida. What's it look like?
So it's funny. We do, how to say this. So several years ago, I had the opportunity. We've been getting some of our funding. It's called the technology fee. So it's a fee on top of student tuition and all of that. And there for a very long time, it was distributed across campus through a proposal request system. Students were part of this and all that. Yeah, it's basically an internal grant system. And a lot of the colleges used that to equip their classrooms. Fortunately, all of that funneled through the CIO. I reported to the CIO at the time. And when we wrote the rules for it, it was like, all right, well, you all can do what you want, but you have to use university standards to do all of these. So networking standards, the standards we created. So all of these projects that got done were done to our standards. So we are very fortunate in that we are fairly consistent across campus in the equipment that we have. Problem is, not everyone was great at writing the grants. Not everyone got the grants. So it was really hit or miss. So in spring of 2020, fall of 19, spring of 2020, I was working
good old days.
under the direction of the CIO. It was like, all right, let's create a refresh plan. It's like, we're just going to, every year there are classrooms part of this. We're just going to cut some of this off and give it to you guys. It's like, okay, I love this idea. So about the time everything shut down, we had created a 5-year plan. We were just starting to socialize it with folks. And of course, everything had to get put on hold because now suddenly we've got to put equipment in rooms that we weren't planning for and all this other kind of stuff.
And I bet you at that point, that probably sounds very similar to a lot of folks that maybe are listening or not listening, who knows? But I think that I felt a little bit of what we had here kind of rhymed with that as well. So, okay. And then what happened?
Yeah.
Remind us of what it went down.
Yeah. So we were moving in a positive direction. Then COVID. Then remote, high flex, whatever you want to call the classes. We've got to equip for all of that. The first round we did, it was whatever webcams we could source because there was no way we were going to get everything on board because we already had students back on campus in fall of 2020 here in Florida. So
That's because Mark bought all that shit.
Yeah, I already had it all. You weren't getting shit. So you guys all had whatever. Fend for yourself with all the USB shots.
Yeah,
you
COVID
could
hit
go
the
for.
West Coast
Yeah.
first, and Mark was like, "This is going to happen. I'm buying everything." We're like, "Shit."
We got all the PT's optics in North America. We got them all.
I believe that. I believe that. But and it was one of those things that we actually found some really good alternatives out of all of this. When you got to go searching for things when you can't get the name brands, like, actually, these folks are actually pretty good.
We did learn a lot during COVID, didn't we?
A whole lot. And
Some of us did. Some of us went right back to doing stuff the same way we did. And I'm like, you guys missed a huge opportunity.
Yes.
It's true.
Yes,
We're doing all
you did.
kinds of weird shit now in our rooms because of COVID.
Now we've got sound in rooms. It's
Yeah, we got
Unheard of.
We got speakers in there now. It's crazy.
Well, hey, never let what is the saying?
Never let a good
disaster
catastrophe go to waste. Yeah.
so,
exactly.
a lot of people took up on that. Right. But so we've come back now. We're kind of in the same situation a lot of other folks are. The universities across the country were a little budget strapped. All of those funds that had been promised years ago, most of them are still there, but I've got a lot more equipment to put on a refresh plan now. So that 5-year fresh plan was originally got stretched out to a 7-year plan. Then we started cutting back the footprint. So we've got it to a 6-year plan. I'm hoping we can keep that budget so that we can keep doing that sort of thing. But we are, that's the direction we're moving forward in.
Is it lumping up now though? Do you have these like massive spikes now that even if you had that money, would it even be possible to do it? Because I think I think a lot of folks are staring that down. That you've heard the fancy term, this is deferred maintenance. All that means is we're not paying for it right now. We're not going to pay for it now.
We'll do that
Maybe
next
you'll get
year.
money later.
We'll do that next year. We'll do that.
So you just push everything over. So now you got these clumps happening.
For us, no, because it's run to break is what they call it.
Run to fail,
Run to break,
So-
run to fail,
And run to
Run
fail
for your
either
life.
way. Yeah, that too.
That's
Now,
the way we operate all the time. So
Well,
it's great.
and our networking stuff, I mean, our networking footprint, we do have some issues there. So there's some things I can't do when it comes to networking. Like, a lot of AV over the network, I just can't do that in all of my spaces. So there's some forward-looking things we'd like to do. And
No one can, Donnie.
Yeah.
AV over IP, what's that, Donnie?
Yeah,
What is
exactly. Exactly. But so one of the things we're trying to do now is, we've got to remind folks, UCF got a lot of money out of the COVID HERF funds. We were one of the schools that got some of the most in the country. And a lot of that was put back into supporting students. We had a lot of spaces we got to cover and all of this. And a lot of folks haven't made that connection that was one-time money and it's not coming back. So it's like, when are you going to do these things for my space?
It was never going to be a sustainable budget.
There's no money for that anymore. And even the projects we were doing back in the day, like we would go in and we would completely refresh a room. We don't have the money to do that anymore either.
Right.
So it's going in, you're looking at whatever equipment you can reuse, we're going to reuse it so we can stretch this out to as many rooms as possible. Because I'm not just doing classrooms now, I've also got to make sure I hit some conference rooms. I got to make sure I hit some labs, things that were not originally on that original plan, because we're still doing hybrid, or we've put space, things into these rooms that they now need. We got to make sure they're on our refresh plan. So we're stretched pretty thin, and trying to get people to understand, no, really, there's no more money to do these things. That's been a bigger challenge for us.
I got a question for you. You mentioned that transition to going to a refresh cycle, and we're on a refresh cycle, but it's relatively new as well, like yours.
Yeah.
And this
honorary refresh cycle.
Yeah, the issue we're still struggling with is, how do you determine what is and is not a covered space? Because we have departmental spaces that have enough credit hours that they deserve to be covered, but and it's just that weird mix of what do we take the cost of and what do we not?
I'll tell you how I do it, and there are some folks who don't like it, but I use whatever the data is that the university reports to the Board of Governors out of the FICOM data. So the 110 classrooms, I don't care who owns it. If it is a 110 room, it's on my plan. It's like, well, but we teach classes in this other space, but it's not a classroom.
Don't teach there. Yeah.
So if you, and that's the conversation we're having with the colleges now, is that one of the things we needed to do across the campus anyway is true up some of our space inventory. And this is one of the ways of doing that, is like, well, if you're using the space as a classroom, you need to talk to the space folks to get it categorized as a classroom. Because we go through every year and we refresh that 110 room list. We're going building by building. So we're doing this building this year. If you want to change those categories, reach out to Christy and have that conversation. But that takes it off my plate, and that takes it out of, well, they said, this said, it's like, this is what we report to our Board of Governors.
Yeah, that's the stumbling block we're at right now, because in the spring semester, I had classroom emergencies in rooms that were not classified properly. And so now I'm struggling with, that equipment is 12 years old. There's no way you should be having a class in there.
So I mean, like, I'm unironically in a similar state, Donnie. But what I've found is that if I look at the past 2 to 3 years of my life, I've spent way more time meeting with the executive. I've spent way more time in the office of the president speaking about frameworks and policies and structures. Because I think a part and parcel why, all of us in AV, end up having conversations like this, Larry, is because we can, but we often don't, have that intervention at the level of the executive. And like I've found a lot of these things, as much as I'm 100% with Don here, right? If you're teaching like this, the data says this is the most used spaces, then I'm just gonna, put it on my agenda. But what I've found, and I said this at our Infocom this year at one of those presentations that I had to do, is I have to run at the speed of the university. If the provost is not interested, if the president is not interested, if this is not a priority for them, then I could shout till I'm blue in the face. I could shout, correct, right? I could shout till Donnie can hear me, in Florida. It's not going to matter. So what I've been able to do, and I'm very happy that I've been able to do that, is I've spent the time dealing with letting my staff do what they do, and me dealing with the frameworks. So I'm literally in the process of restructuring the entire team right now again, and all that kind of stuff. And it comes back into those frameworks as well. We are a RTF university. We just are. I'm often finding myself repurposing screens that were incorrectly installed by my IT department before I took that stuff over into rooms where they don't have any screens, but they needed a screen. Because somebody said, hey, let's just shoot this on a wall. Yeah. It's going to make sense one day. Yeah. And I find myself reinstalling a 7-year-old projector, but letting everybody know, hey, this is going to die. It's going to die 6 months ago. It's not going to come back on. Yeah, when it dies, do not call me unless you have a budget. If you don't have a budget, don't call me.
What's the oldest piece of equipment that you know of that you
that is running right
in
now?
a classroom? Like, are you still in operation? Let me ask this question. Are you still rocking MPS 100s?
Oh, no, we never. Oh, shoot. Buddy, Justin, I love you, but no. So we've
okay, we have them in our classroom.
We've never had the budget to go to the
you never even could afford the MPS 100.
No.
This is the free.
Because listen, I've been that guy shouting at my stereo in my car when I listened to y'all when y'all did all the design stuff.
My
base classroom,
he was there.
Right? Yeah. My base classroom is projector that I'm using the projector as my switcher, my volume controller, and my display. So my output from my projector is going to hit my amp, that's going to hit my speakers. If I'm lucky in my 30 by 30 rooms, I can do 4 cans in the ceiling. If I'm really, really lucky, I could do like Jason and the boys at FIU and get 2 of those JBL drop-ins or equivalent, right? Yeah. But more than likely, I'm going to have Christopher, because the ghost of Christopher exists on my team. And he's shouting at us classroom to classroom, why are those speakers on the wall? They're ridiculous. So we got those warm-up
exactly what I sound like.
There you go.
That's good.
And Justin, I got 10 of those rooms on one processor. No, not in separate program slots.
Oh,
I
good
can't
gravy.
Just running it.
Slots.
Yes.
Wow. I will say,
one
you
program,
are lucky.
Justin.
You're all lucky. You have speakers. You have audio.
I know. I listened to this podcast. Yeah. I have some finger wagging to do in here, but that's not for today. We're doing budgets.
That's just one building, though.
See, but this is the premise of what I was talking about. Like,
when I can do it, you can do it too. I'm just
when you're pushing down that total cost, and you need to get like the bare utility out of a room. I think, wow, you are at like, this is the utility I need to have, and it's a computer, a display, and whatever basic other peripheral I need to make it happen.
Hopefully sound.
So again, we're not going to relitigate that episode today. Maybe we could do a part 2 and y'all can invite me over, because nobody's more broke than me. But so for that, I get as much return as I can. Yeah. But all of my rooms that we started doing I don't want to tell a lie, we got those things kicked off in 2017. They're in the 7th year of existence, basically. Anybody who knows anything will tell you your switching equipment's not really going to fail, maybe. Those PTZs are not going to go down. Well, okay, Chris, maybe your switching equipment goes down. Yeah. I can't afford a switcher, so I don't have that worry. But what goes down for you in your 5, 6, 7? It's going to be your displays, right?
Yeah.
So my projectors are the ones that are really going to be kicking me in the butt that I need to do replacements for. But unlike some people that are super friends with capes, I can't just throw a projector out there and forget all about it. I have a staff of 4 now. Mm-hmm. It used to be a staff of 2. I have 10 campuses, and I have 2 islands.
Yes,
that's great.
Oh my God.
Right in the pocket.
The cup is definitely half full. But you
doubled his staff.
There you go. But you see where I'm going with this. So for me, that's why I couldn't run from standards. That's why it's so important for me to have those framework meetings, because my provost said to me, Lyle, we're expanding regionally. I'm like, okay. So we want to do more hybrid instruction. I'm like, all right. And we neither have the staff nor the budgets fit. And he's like, don't worry about it. Now let's say that it's not not just me being sweet talked, right, to get me out of the office because I talk a lot. I'm going to be prepared.
Well, as far as crazy as it feels, I think there's a lot of people that are in that similar situation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think those folks probably didn't realize that a portion of their job was going to be this legalese, this whole lobbying effort that it takes. Mm-hmm. And you've heard us talk about it in the past, where it's like, do you know whatever your new framework is, whatever your new CIO, CEO came in and they put down their new 5-year plan, can you take what you do and fit it into that framework? Like you were speaking, like making sure that framework right, so that you can be playing the same game they're playing and understand how to explain your needs so it meets that same goal. A lot of AV folks are like, I just hang projectors, right? They don't understand that that's where they're at. And like, you have to be at the table, like you're mentioning. And that's where the decision's going to be made. Is your narrative aligned with that larger campus narrative? And sometimes you got to get creative. It
No,
becomes
Mark,
creative
just
writing.
to piggyback on what you just said, I think what we miss is this. When the academics meet, because I've been, the former president asked me to sit in on academic council. So now I'm there and I'm listening, but I'm also speaking. When they meet at academic council, they do not discuss spaces, tier 1s, tier 2s, and the rest. They discuss classroom stuff like teaching. They discuss blended and online and that stuff. So for me, let's take it in a slightly different direction. Who is speaking about AV? If you're the most senior tech manager on your university campus and you are not bringing it to the president and you are not bringing it to the provost, then don't write Super Friends a stink letter saying, I have no money. The reason you have no money is not because of Chris and Justin and Mark and Larry. It's not because of Don
It
and
might
me.
be.
It's Jamie.
Maybe.
It
Damn,
could
Jamie
be.
did.
Yes, Jamie's not here. It's definitely Jamie. But it's also you because you've not sat down and said,
Yes.
you know what? Let me knock on somebody's door that has a brass plaque over the top that says president.
But don't bring them a problem. Bring them a solution.
Solutions,
But
That's the
sometimes
prepared part.
and sometimes the solution is to do less. Because one of the things we forget about is that not everyone uses the equipment we put in all these classrooms.
Right.
Like I get asked all the time, well, when are you going to put a smart board in my room?
A smart
I'm
board.
not. Because when we look at who uses them across campus, I got 4 faculty, maybe a little bit more than that.
Go
but
over there and use it.
Yeah, and that's where we're moving towards, is helping people find where we've got the space, so we're not duplicating this unused equipment across.
I want
the
to
board.
ask specifically about that. As part of your new budget modality, or whatever you want to call it, are you revisiting space and say, should we even have technology in here to begin with?
No, because no, yeah, we can't take it back at this point.
Really?
What
Okay,
we-
interesting.
Will be there.
What about if you did that at night and didn't tell people?
Well, because no, it's an accessibility thing, guys. It's an
Oh, yeah, yeah,
accessibility.
I don't
Then you just
disagree.
gaslight them and tell them it was never there. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, I have been asked to take equipment out of spaces before.
ADA.
You're one person out of the 22 teaching in here. I can't take it out.
Correct.
But and so that's kind of where it comes to, because anyone can get put in any room. We've got to keep a base standard across a consistent experience across the board. But we put more stuff in there too.
But I think when we look at like the metrics, like the actual usage, do you find spaces that are maybe not getting as used as much? Kind of circling back what Larry was kind of getting at. If you have the edge cases where you're like, we have capacity centrally for these spaces that are funded more ADA correct and accessible, why would we keep chasing something else somewhere else
It's
at the end of its lifespan?
That is exactly what we're doing right now. In fact, there's an effort underway at the university to better utilize all of our spaces, and we're taking classrooms offline because we had the registrar's office had some folks come in. They did an assessment. We've got thousands of hours of unused room time in our classes. So they're just starting to cut classrooms off of it. And that's actually been a boon for us, because we've gone in, when they take one off, we decommission the room, and now we've got a whole bunch of static stock.
Upgrades, spares, yep.
Yeah, well, and it's not just spares, but it's also in these other places where we've not been able to add a room to our refresh list. It's like, now I can take care of some of these things because I got pieces and parts to do it with. So we're trying to be as creative as we can, but also trying to be that good steward of not just the equipment, but the space itself.
Okay.
I mean,
go
Mark, could I just really quickly just challenge that though? Because the question for me is, the space is not being used. Is it because, what is the question? Why is it not being used? If we've not answered that question, should we immediately get to the answer of let's take it down? Let's So
I'll tell you. I'm going to respond first. We've all have it, but this room is in where my office is, and I don't want to walk over there. And my whatever department made an investment 15 years ago when we put some stuff in here. We need new stuff, and it was done on a grant model back then. Doesn't that mean you're going to come over here and pay for it for us? And the answer is no, we're not. In fact, you should actually look at where the capability exists on campus and welcome the opportunity to go out and mix around with the community.
Yeah, and our provost has essentially taken back all of the classroom spaces. Like, they belong to the provost, and so they are going to do with it as the needs tell us we do.
That's a good thing, I think.
Well,
though.
we need so much more research space, lab space. We need so much more office space. If these spaces aren't being used for that, I got researchers we can put in there, and that is what we're going to do, because we are not going to be able to build enough new buildings in the amount of time that we need to cover all of our needs.
Right.
I mean, nor should we, to be fair. We had 1 million buildings and we had to get rid of a couple of campuses. We're not doing too badly since. But I mean, for me, Mark, I just feel so strongly about that last point, which is like, well, okay, I'm not sure what the problem is. Was the problem the tech sucked? Was the problem that it was designed poorly? Was the problem that, they were too lazy to redesign their instruction? So, like a great example is somebody found a 60-inch smart touch board the other day. Office of the president, I don't know, somebody donated it, wanted to impress him or whatever. The new president says to me, "Hey, look, I don't want this. This is just sitting in my office. What can you do with it?"
Smart.
First, the
Throw
first
it
thing he
away.
did
Get the
is,
thing
there
out.
you go.
Right away.
To the
Get it
dumpster
out.
we went. To the
That's
dumpster
right.
we went. But I
And there was
stopped
another
by
one,
my-
so now we have two of these things.
Throw it in an
I stopped
ocean.
by my office. This is outside of my paradigm. I've never seen one before. We spent 2 weeks trying to figure out how to manage it remotely. Because again, if you didn't figure it out, I have 10 campuses on 2 islands. I don't have staff at every campus. So if I can't touch this thing remotely, it's not going out into my system. It's just not. So we figured it out, and we're going to deploy it maybe in the next 2 weeks before September comes around. But this is the question for me all the time: is like, well, okay, what are we doing with this? What are we doing with that? What is your real problem?
What do you solve?
That's the $1 million question. Correct.
Yeah, what actually needs to be done. So
Mm-hmm.
it's I'm curious to just see the takes on that around. Just everybody has their own little version of it. But so as we kind of begin this journey here, we had that whole conversation around. You had all these new one-time funds. Has that changed the way we look at what our quote unquote standards look like now versus what they did before that? And I'll tee it off here. Is like obviously we're kind of going down the road where we're actually collapsing room types. As blasphemous as that sounds,
No.
You're lying.
No,
You're like
that's
to
not.
7A.
we're converting into like kit. It's more kit, right? It's more. We
Yeah.
have 27,000 versions of Dash Bs.
That's a lot.
but it's mostly kit now, right? And so, as early as this morning, it's like, how does that change the way we look at our refresh versus response? We can do break fix because the kit is the same. We're out of black box mystery stuff. Maybe not everywhere, but as we move to our standard infrastructure, I think it gives us a level of flexibility where it allows us to view how we look at rooms differently. We can get a little bit more time out of a standardized teaching space now because we're going with a more modular kit. So what's different today with any of your your quote unquote standards at this point?
See, that's where we've been for a long time. Even
That-
even our high end active learning rooms, they're still based on that basic kit. We do not call our rooms tier 1, tier 2. We don't have any of that stuff. It's
You
just
don't have a
room.
legacy end of life room category?
No,
We have one category too. It's called other.
Yeah.
Everything. It's really simple on our
Justin, I thought it was
campus.
custom.
Custom / other / all.
Well, I'm telling you, it will change the way you think about it because names are destiny. When you start calling things tier 1, tier 2, or giving them fancy names, then people suddenly get emotional about what space they're in.
Yeah,
we
they
don't.
can, yeah.
I don't play that game. It's like you have one display, you have 2 displays, you have multi displays. That is the only difference in our rooms. Everything else works.
You just described 3 tiers, Donnie.
Technically.
But from a functional point of view.
That-
Right, so I'm getting them to think about what does the room do for
Right,
you,
right.
not like what does it mean to be a tier 1 room. Yeah, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, we're face to face, we're video conferencing, and then we're other being auditorium, large format, partition based, like that kind of stuff. But we really, and I mean, you shouldn't be surprised, right? Because the greatest thing happened to me is one of my trons made me a part of Florida. So there's a fun little story on that. I'm not going to get it into this
Wow,
point, but that's how I met Don
It's like a
years
political
ago.
thing. That's pretty
Many,
neat.
many
we
years
were-
ago.
Many years ago, we were put into Florida because technically I'm Latam, but we don't speak Spanish in Trinidad, right? So, we're in the same exact state because a lot of what some of the discussions done that we used to have, 10 years ago, were the things that I really saw fit to put in. I'll tell you this much about your question, Mark. When COVID hit and y'all were getting all that money, I'm not an envious guy. But I would be lying as a human if I did not say I sat back with my arms folded because I consider all of y'all to be my peers, and I was really envious. I was upset. But then little bit by little bit, I see y'all buying like Logitech webcams and like Amazon webcams, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting when COVID's done. So in many ways, like now that it's done and all of the like AV Week articles and Hetma articles are basically like, okay, what are we going to do now that we've created this crisis? I'm kind of happy that, we've been able to stay the course. Obviously, I wish I had more funding.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that a lot of what I was able to put in place, even though it's on paper because everything is RTF, I'm now more mature and a little bit, easier going, able to sit with the president and the provost and these kind of folk and get them to go, let's fix the structure. Because money or not money, if those structures are, let me put it this way, if I give you all the money and you're still in the bad state that you are in terms of your structures, your frameworks, understanding the support matrix that your executive wants, you're just going to waste it like in the COVID days anyway.
Yeah, it's easy because it's easy to spend once you have it sitting there, right? It burns a
Correct.
hole in your pocket. I'm going to pull an executive decision here. I'm going to put another quarter in the meter. And we're going to spend a little more time because we have some good friends on the show today. So we're going to give you a little bit of overtime today on this, since we're not going to confine it to 30 seconds. I think this is a really great conversation, because I think there's a lot of people trying to now figure out, what do you do now? Because you did all this stuff and you put all this new stuff in. And so how do you start to rethink that to potentially capture the savings you're going to have to find? So you did all this expansion, you put all these cameras, you put all these microphones, you did all this stuff, you loaded up with widgets to get it all into your USB, and that was outside your standard. But now I can't afford that. So what are the strategies we're thinking about actually working on to get our arms around that?
So magical money from heaven is a wish in the monkey's paw. I mean, bottom line, it sounds great until you hear that knocking at the door and you're afraid to open the door. And for us, the knocking on the door is people's change of perception across campus. Well, you got all of this money. It fixed all your problems, didn't it? No, it did not.
Created more problems.
It not only created more problems, but some of them it just moved down the road, some of the old ones. So part of it is kind of reframing that conversation is, all right, we got all this equipment now. How much of this do you want to keep? How much of this functionality do you want to keep in your spaces? And that's been a good conversation for folks, because the accessibility part, I'm going to lean into that pretty heavily. It has been a boon for accessibility. And a huge improvement to our students. And we are doing this for our students. So we will keep those sorts of things through. But I'll go back to something that didn't really get covered a lot in the article, but we were talking about it a little bit from the pre-show, is that we discovered a lot of new people and a lot of new products and a lot of new companies when we were forced to look elsewhere for solutions. And a lot of them cost a lot less than the ones we were using before. And so one of the things we were doing is looking at what we have been consistent in putting across all of our campuses for whatever reason, and going, do we still need to use that particular thing, or is there another solution here? And in a lot of cases, there's been another solution. And a lot of those cases, I've been really happy with that new solution.
So kind of going to your point, Donnie, is we went through that same thing. Is, a button panel is a button panel, sort of. They all have their different configurations and all that. But we're buying Crestron, Kramer, Extron. We're buying QSys stuff. So we don't have standards of equipment anymore, but we have standard experiences that we still drive, because faculty don't care what they're touching as long as it's working the way they think it should.
It needs to work similar enough to get the job done.
Yeah.
So the problem
it
we have
actually
is
is
telling the metric
expanded.
story afterwards.
It's actually expanded our capabilities for human resources, because now my programmer knows so many different things, and our installers know how to configure so many different things. It's made us a better group.
Well, and so one of the things we've been trying to move folks away from talking about, the Crestron. The Crestron isn't what you think it is, but they keep saying that, and that confuses things when they're asking for help.
Correct.
So we've been trying to move them
It's
away
the
from
Kleenex
that.
problem. Right?
It is. But Mark, to your point, it depends on what metrics you're tracking. So one of the things we're trying to do is, when I'm reporting up our age metrics and all these sorts of things, I don't want to tell them this equipment, this manufacturer, this manufacturer, this manufacturer. I want to go, all of our document cameras average age is 6 years.
Display.com, wireless.
So you got to be selective in how you create those metrics and how you report them up. Be as generic as you can, because at the end of the day, senior leadership does not
doesn't
care
care.
where you got it from. They just want to know that functionality is still there.
Or the name on it. Yeah.
Does it plumb into their chart on their dashboard?
I'm philosophically in the same boat. I just walk one step to the left, because I kind of have to maintain my button panels as Crestron. I can't do one of all, because I'm literally just on an island. I don't have y'all to call. I can't jump in my car and drive, from like FIU to Donnie to sit with his team and learn something. So when you're literally on a rock and it literally takes 5 hours to fly to Florida, I can't get too experimental. I guess the good news is I have no money, so I can't get any experimental buying it doesn't matter, right? But again, I'm happy that my team is going to listen to this podcast. At least they promised me to. I have to do the performance appraisal, so you go figure that out, Chris.
Ask pointed questions about this
Yeah, our
episode.
listeners spiked by 7.
Right?
We have 7
There you go,
extra
right?
listeners
I have
today.
performance appraisals happening in September, right? So, but they're going to listen to this, and I'm comforted to know that they're going to hear this and go, wait a minute, we're only off the bell curve of the big boys because we have no money. We did everything else right. Really? And that's a tough sell for me, because I always think I could find something I've done wrong all the time. But as I said, just looking back at that whole COVID process and how you all were funded, Mark, I'm just like, okay, I think that's going to be horrible for them in a couple of years.
We're all living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah,
we
like-
all spend everything that comes in. Like that's
Oh, yeah.
that's just the reality of what happens. That we will grow to as much as we can. And I think
Correct.
Plan
all
next
IT is that
paycheck.
same day. Yeah, exactly. And I'm borrowing against tomorrow. And so I think
I'm
that
still
we're
paying
all in
for
that boat.
Vegas 2 years ago for Infocom. You don't talk to me who put exchange rates in the game. Okay? Stop
So
it.
if nothing else, I think there's comfort in knowing we're all trying to figure it out, right? And that we knew. I think there's a little bit of narrative from everybody's perspective that we've had here. I think there has been some grace kind of given, and I agree with everything that everybody said around finding alternate solutions, because I think it has pushed down the cost, right? It has allowed us to maybe capture some of that new capability because we reduce the way we're thinking about things. Can we simplify this down so that we know we're going to keep that utility based in our standards and not lose this new found capability we came across due to COVID or whatever it is, but finding a responsible way to keep it in there so that we're not kind of reducing experience across the board becomes the name of the game.
Yeah.
So
And everyone's solution is going to depend on local politics. I mean, what works for one person is not going to work for somebody else because your leadership is just going to be different. You're going to have to navigate that yourself.
absolutely. Chris, are we all wrong? Tell us we're all wrong.
No, I think you guys got to the meat of it at the end there with
Took that long.
yes, with the concept of this is an opportunity to rethink how we do things, and if we're just going back and doing things the same way we did in 2018, 2017, we're probably, it may be right for your institution, for your scenario, but there was a huge opportunity here, and there's still an opportunity. It's just previously the opportunity was funded. Now the opportunity is not funded, so now you have to be clever about it. But the opportunity is still there to look at that and say, do I really need all this stuff? I think, Donnie, I think you're the one who said, like, we have all these things in it. Do we need all of this? Really? I don't think we need this, but no one uses it. There's 4 people. And, you know, I'm doing that as I make rooms simpler, as I try to remove stuff from between instructors and their students. Why am I getting in between there? Why do I need a giant stack of equipment to do all that? Because it's not sustainable in the long term. It's easier to support if there's fewer things, if those fewer things are more common around campus, if those fewer things tie more appropriately to how people are using them for teaching and learning, then there's, you know, the benefit there is the cost comes down. I guess it can come down. So
Yeah, the standards are not the names of brands on your list. That's
No,
not
it's
what it is.
functionality. Yeah.
Yep. So
Standard
and people
functionality.
shouldn't know that. To the comment about Crestron, it's like I always think it'd be a good model for them to just sell stickers you can put in other people's stuff. But
hey, if that's what pays the bills, we get it done. So, all right. So get creative, be flexible, and think about the experience, right? And own it. Be at the table. Be at the table. If you're not there, who is? And if the answer is you don't know, go be the person.
yeah, and
Correct.
think
Your way in
fundamentally
there.
about those the activities, the teaching and learning on the space. What do they actually need to do? You keep boiling it down, boil it down, boil it down. What are they trying to do? Because at the end of the day, the person teaching their physics class, their history class, their science, you know, whatever, it is, they don't care what. That's 4K, 8K, 64. They don't care. Can I see that person?
1080.
Can they see me? Can they hear me? Can I get my content to them? If it's me
My-
holding up a laptop, that might be the right solution for them.
I don't know, Chris. My biology department really likes 444 color space.
Sure they do.
Sure they do. Yes, right.
I'm
Also
sure
like
they could
Netflix.
tell.
Color space.
I'm sure they could tell the differences
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah,
Right.
With their 4x3 PowerPoint.
On their 4x3 PowerPoints.
All right. Well, Lyle, Donnie, if people want to chat to you guys, how are they getting a hold of you?
You can always find me on LinkedIn or just email me directly, don.merritt@UCF. Easy to find.
Gosh, I'm like mini me Donnie today. So you can find me on LinkedIn or you can email me at lyle.waldron@utt.edu.tt.
I thought you were going to say at UCF as well. Just
I was hoping one day,
Maybe one day.
maybe soon.
just show up there.
Yeah.
I made it. 5 hours.
To be
That's
fair,
what I
I-
did last time, Chris. It did not work out. 'Cause I'm standing in my okay. That was a TMI.
All right. Well, I'm going to roll us out here. Thanks again to Lyle and to Donnie for joining us, putting up with our nonsense, and I think we've solved all potential future
All budgeting standardized
budgeting
problems have been solved.
questions
Stay forward.
and classroom tiers and equipment standards, and we've done it all today, and we still have time left on the clock. So.
Signing off. Yeah.
We still have 30
Solved
more
it all.
minutes.
30 more minutes to go. Get ready.
All right, well, we'll be back next month with another topic of whatever we come up with for that one. So
Play the music out for us.
I'm
Chris.
working on it.
I know. So,
There it is.
Lyle, Donnie, thank you guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Joe.
guys.
Peace.
Thanks for putting up with yet another episode of AV Super Friends on Topic. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV Super Friends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients. AV Super Friends on Topic is an independent production wholly owned and operated by AV Super Friends, LLC. For the highest quality recording of all of our shows, visit avsuperfriends.com.